Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 21 of Words on Whiskey, brought to you by Irish Whiskey Magazine. Thanks very much for everybody for joining. And as usual, we're going to kick off with the news. So it's been quite an eventful week. We'll start off with talking about some new releases. So as always, there's so much going on that it's sometimes hard to keep track of how many things are happening. But there has been a lot of activity this week, and let me just share that with you. So from Walsh Whiskey, we have a new release. The Founders Reserved small batch is out, and for the first time ever, this is actually finished in an Oloroso cask. Bottled at 46% ABV and available for €75 or $99 where available. So that's always one to watch out for every year. So, and then Bushmills have made a return. They've made a return with something very interesting. They've come out with the Causeway series. Causeway Collection is what they call it. And it's two releases in that Causeway Collection. This is a 2008 Muscatel cask. 1,454 bottles only, bottled at 56% ABV and retailing at €100 or £95. Good luck with finding that one of these releases are pre-sold, it seems already. So there's been a huge demand for those. And then there's the 1995 Malaga cask finish. And this is 2,491 bottles, retailing at €400, bottled at a 53.5% ABV. And this has actually spent 14 years in a Malaga cask. Got to try both of them there the other day, and they're both fantastic releases. And it's great to see Bushmills doing cask strength limited releases again. So, and then of course we can't ignore the lockdown. So the government announced that we are going into lockdown from midnight tonight. That's the whole country. The north has already been in lockdown for a week or so, a couple of weeks, and the rest of the country is now joining them. So that is really bad news for the industry, really bad news for the hospitality sector, hotels, bars, publicans, the whole trade. So our sympathies go out to them. It's going to be a very, very difficult time. Of course, it also means that distillery tours have come to an end for the moment. So unfortunately, 6 weeks of lockdown, and quite sad, very sad. But the one thing that struck me is the amount of support that people give to each other. The community out there is very strong, and there's been a lot of calls for support and a lot of camaraderie shown. Just here's an example came up with today from Dave. With tonight's announcement going into level 5 restrictions, the road ahead will be stressful and made harder by the time of year. I'm always available for a chat if anybody needs one. So I thought that was a really nice sentiment by Dave to reach out to the community and wish them levels of support. So look, that's the bad news. Let's lift it up a bit. And I'm delighted to say I have two very special guests that I'm thrilled to have agreed to come on the show. I don't know what they've let themselves in for, but let's bring in Jack Teeling and Alex Chasko. Good evening, both of you.
Hey.
How are you keeping?
Doing well as can be in the current circumstances. Getting our head around another 6 weeks, bit of deja vu going on, but besides from that, trying to keep as positive as possible.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, obviously, you'll be working mostly from home. And Alex, will you be going in?
Yeah, I'm going in there probably 3-4 days a week. Sometimes for very short periods of time, sometimes for the full day. We're continuing production, but we're trying to keep the staff to a minimum and to have people in bubbles so that if anyone does get sick, obviously you don't lose the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, you had made so much effort in actually creating an environment there that was safe, and the tours were running, and there were no instances of COVID from those tours. I mean, is there anything you think you would like to see the government to do? Is there anything they could have done differently?
Look, it's very easy to bash, and everyone's trying their best to do what they think is right. And hindsight is always easy to attack people. I think reality, the tourism side of the business, the hospitality side of the business, I feel they haven't had a dedicated task force to manage those parts of the business that have been greatly impacted. Yeah. And sometimes the decisions were made before the support mechanisms were put in place. So knee-jerk reaction, and then actually figuring out, oh my God, what does that mean, and so forth. So I'm hoping, because this is not going away anytime soon, that there's going to be significant supports to make sure that the viable businesses and the business that the equity that's been created by people over the last number of years, these are viable, successful businesses, that they're not going to get destroyed because of decisions made for the good and the health of the nation. Yeah.
It's tricky times. It's hard to come up with a solution that suits everybody. I'm just looking here. We've people from all over joining us. We've Tina from Germany, Shamini, I think probably your biggest fan from Norway. Liam from Scotland. John Burke. All over. So it's great to have a wide variety of people. Obviously, the distillery closing down, the distillery has achieved so many awards, and I think you've had 500,000 visitors, I think, since you opened up. And we're talking 5 years, and it seems as if you guys have been around an awful lot longer, in a good way. But I mean, I don't know if it's there's been so many releases and so much activity out of that area, and the distillery's been a huge success. How did the whole idea come about to set up a distillery, I suppose? Jack, I know obviously you grew up in a whiskey environment. You worked for Cooley as well. You worked for your father. Was it a natural progression for you to go into the distilling industry, the whiskey industry?
This is going back a bit now, and I'm sure you've had my father on. I'm sorry I'm not wearing a tie like he was.
Well, I know, and I thought you were going to make me wear one, but I'm okay.
I wore ties long enough when I worked in Cooley. So
yes.
One thing I said when I set up Teeling Whiskey Company was no ties. I did wear a suit for a while, and then I kind of let that slip as well. So, no, it was never a straightforward path. It definitely wasn't my thinking. I remember, obviously, when relatively young age, being exposed to bottles of whiskey, openings of distilleries, opening of warehouses, all this kind of stuff like that, and in a way, taking it for granted. But also, he was involved in all these other more exotic projects, like drilling for oil in the Amazon and all these other kind of stuff like that. So for me, I suppose that was normal, and kind of entrepreneurial. Go out there and just do something. It was kind of, I suppose, I was exposed to it, so maybe I picked it up by osmosis. But I started off with a view that I was going into finance, maybe because that's kind of an area that he exposed me to as well, and did commerce, did a master's in finance, ended up working in investment banking in Dublin, and I did that for a couple of years, went to Australia, and then I'd always said I wouldn't work with my father or for my father, just because of the dynamics of father and son, and every father and son's relationships are different, but I don't take well for people telling me what to do, so I find it very hard. If it's your father telling you what to do, it's even harder. But he invited me in at a time when actually grants were trying to buy Cooley and Angostura. There was loads of different stuff going on, and he said, "Come in and you'll learn something." And I came in, and what actually happened was a lot of the team jumped ship because they thought they were going to be a subsidiary of grants and they were going to be just production assets, and there was all these holes in the organization, and I kind of started filtering into different areas, and I quickly saw the differences between finance and making something, actually making whiskey, so much more rewarding. And I also saw the opportunity that was there really 2001, 2002. The momentum in Irish whiskey was starting, and we had a unique position. It was a duopoly. There was only two producers, and they'd come through all the hard times, and I was coming in, I suppose, at the time when the industry was taking off, and I could hopefully bring some insights and a bit of energy into the organization. So I decided that I'd reskill myself, and I did in conjunction with Enterprise Ireland part-time masters in international business with other SMEs, and it really connected because I'd worked solely on Cooley and Irish whiskey, and it kind of took a lot of learnings from that. And to be honest with you, I took those learnings that I found back in 2002, 3, 4, and actually put them into play for the Teeling Whiskey Company as well. So for me, it was an amazing opportunity to learn about production, about making products for people, the struggles of building brands, and also a chance to really, hopefully, deeply understand the consumers that were drinking Irish whiskey internationally. So I was at it for quite some time. Alex, I was just thinking about it today. It's like unlikely bedfellows of how our paths crossed throughout the world.
But did your paths crossed in Cooley? Did they? And Kilbeggan?
Cooley there. I was going around, and I was basically an out-of-work brewer and looking for opportunities, and knew that Irish whiskey was growing, and had heard about the Teelings and Cooley, and I went and met with Jack and said, I want to make unusual and unique whiskeys that the world's never seen before.
What I remember was, actually, I think you emailed either me or the general one, a kind of a fishing expedition. I sent you down to Bernadette Quinn as a screen to get rid of you. And she said, no, you should meet him. He's quite interesting. And so I agreed to meet you up in the old Clontarf offices. And I really bought into the same kind of idea of that we can do things differently. So you can really
engage there. If the industry is going to grow, there's going to be more than just a mega brand out there. We're going to have real diversity and a spectrum of different flavors in Irish whiskey. It's going to take people making unique and unusual whiskeys. And,
well, you've certainly done that. I made a list that I'll go through. I'll go through later. But these are ones that I haven't researched. These are ones off the top of my head that I could think of.
I remember you asking me this question before, and you were like, you had a number, and it was like 280 or something like that. And then you're looking, is that the number? Is that?
I didn't go through individual ones because I went through categories of different finishes. I'll come on to that actually. Just in terms of what you're talking about, the business side of things, Jack, I mean, I've heard you speak on a number of occasions, actually at Enterprise Ireland conferences in particular, in terms of, taking marketing and branding and business skills and showcasing what you have done, because you've very much taken a base product and really investigated the marketing branding side of what Teeling is. Was that a very conscious effort? Was it something that you wanted deliberately to market very differently to what's been out there?
Totally. That was at the core of how I approached it. And what I really wanted to do was that this was a consumer-led brand and company and whiskey, because I came from a very strong production background, and Cooley was a production company. And I think it's very hard to be both. What I wanted to do with this one was to focus on building a style of whiskey and a brand associated with it that really tapped into what I was interested in and what I thought other people were interested in as well. So as I said, a modern interpretation of a very traditional product. And I felt that no one had done that. And all the brands that had been out there at that time they're rooted in history, and they still, they celebrated and they brought it. But, we had the anchor of Walter Teeling and so forth. It was just a justification for why we go into Dublin. But going to Dublin, for me, allowed us to take a more modern, urban kind of approach to building a distillery, and the whiskey, it all has to work together. So we want the whiskey, the taste, the packaging, what we represented, and what we do, all and our brand home, all to work together. So it was a very, very conscious effort, and from the start, that's what we wanted to do, and really wanted to do something functionally different. Because the one thing we saw a lot of, so you might say we've done, I don't know, you'll shock me now when you tell me how many.
Yeah, I'll bring out the calculator. There's well over 200. It's closer, I think, over 300.
We did the same in Cooley, but we made it for other people. But
most
of them were very similar in terms of the taste, and they really have their own personality and DNA to stand behind. So I think everything that we do, we really are not trying to copy. We're trying to do something that's an expression of who we are and what we are trying to achieve within the category. And it started off with the small batch with that rum approach, working with the likes of yourself and the Irish Whiskey Society in terms of, is this interesting? Can you guys get behind this? And it started us on the journey, and it's taken us to some interesting and hopefully good whiskey places.
It certainly has. I mean, one of the things you have done, and I think, Alex, you've done this on a number of occasions, is prior to actually finishing a product and releasing it, you do often involve the public and the whiskey societies and the crowd, and you have them involved. You get their opinion, you take it on board, and what I like is that you take the criticism just as well as you take the compliments.
I think it has to be not done by committee, but you have to know what people's feedback is there, right? It is. It's important both for us to get feedback, but also to get ideas. I love going out to the whiskey shows because you hear people saying, "Oh, did you hear about this? Oh, did you hear about that?" And, I tried this fish whiskey once in the 80s. It was horrible. And all those sorts of legendary stories that are there. And then you sort of go, wait a minute, maybe we won't make a fish whiskey, but we could do something that's kind of crazy too, right?
Well, I mean, you started off with innovation at the go. The rum cask finish certainly put you on the map. And again, with Teeling, one of the things that really impresses me is you punch so much above your weight in terms of your size. That brand is a massive brand. It's you see research and you see the Teeling brand is very well recognized. It's up there with the big players, and getting that and converting that into sales, is that happening, and how does that happen?
That's a good question. I wouldn't consider ourselves a big brand yet. Hopefully we'll get there. We've created a good, hopefully positive noise, and in some markets we're a little bit more advanced than other markets. Like, for example, in the US, it's still a lot of work to be done in terms of getting who we are and what we're all about out there. Other markets, like domestically, we've got amazing PR and support to get the story out there, and it's hopefully stuck in terms of brand awareness. But no, it's tough, and what we want to be seen, we want to have whiskey credentials. We want to be relevant within the whiskey community. We want, we're not mass market. We have to earn the right to go mass market. So that's the way we approach it. We approach it. So let's create a whiskey for people to discover that's different, that's high quality. Let's integrate ourselves into the whiskey communities in all the markets we are. And as the opportunity and the category gets bigger, then we can put it into wider distribution, and at the same time bring out other expressions that can still engage with that community and keep them interested. So there is method to the madness. Sometimes we're not as disciplined as we should be, because we love releasing new products, and we love releasing, really good high quality single casks. There's a balance between doing too much.
Yeah, it is about getting that balance, right?
And confusing people. So we don't want to confuse people, and that we just have such a wall of different things. And the first time we experience it is, something that's a bit out there. So there's still, there's always work to be done. We're up against massive players who've been in the market for a long time, with tons of money, who can outspend us, have amazing inventory of old whiskey as well. They can out innovate us if they really wanted it. But what we're doing, and hopefully other people are doing as well. We're poking the bears, and the bears are responding. So it was great to see Bushmills bringing out some of their old stock in cask, as you say, at higher ABVs. I think that's brilliant. It's about time, if you ask me. And what Irish distillers are doing and so forth. Like, it's all good for the category, and that's we feel we have a role in helping the category stay relevant and expand.
And even if you go back to that small batch, right? Like, you can think of it being the rum cask, but I mean, 46% for an Irish blend.
That was the big news then. Yeah, that was big
Nobody
news.
Was doing that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It was just. I mean, you're certainly disruptors in the market, and in the positive sense.
I think we're focusing on flavor, though, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not just like being weird for the sake of being weird.
No, and that's a very important point. There is innovation. There is an awful lot of innovation, but there's no point innovating and bringing out, a bike with square wheels. So I mean, I think not all of them have been huge successes, obviously, but on the whole, they're excellent products. And we'll talk about the products later. I just wanted to touch with Alex there on, obviously you started off in brewing, and as I remember, and the only way I remember where you're from is because you use Oregon pine in your fermentation casks. So you're from Oregon originally, and how did you end up here?
How did I end up here? Wow, that's a good question. So I started out at Bridgeport Brewing Company in Portland back in the 90s. And Bridgeport back in 1996 was the first people, believe it or not, to release this little unknown style of beer that was only popular amongst the beer geeks out there, called IPA. And it still amazes me to this day that we were bottling IPA in 1996, and that IPA has become now a household name, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's down to Bridgeport. Certainly, there's a load of other people that have taken that baton and ran with it. But what I think Bridgeport and those other craft breweries did was focus on the flavor. They focused on, Hefeweizens, IPAs, pale ales, session beers, all of these, the craft beer revolution was taking place. And as a young brewer, what I very quickly realized was that the genie was out of the bottle, right? Like, it was no longer going to be your mass marketed lagers that people were looking for. People were looking for flavor, and that's what was key. And I think that's one of the things that Jack and I really connected on, especially on those early days, was things like cask finishes, was things like trying to do the desire to do unique mash bills, the desire to look at yeast, the desire to look at different distillation techniques, right? Yeah. Because we had, in the experience, Cooley and Jack certainly a lot more than me, had seen how the Me Too brands, they just weren't going to work, right? You had to have something that was unique and compelling and different. And at the end of the day, it's really flavor that people are going to judge you on. So,
obviously you did chemistry. Was that as part of your?
Yeah, sorry. So my background is I'm a chemistry student from the University of Oregon. Went and got a master's degree in brewing and distilling from Harriet-Watt University after years of making unusual ales and lagers in both Portland and Seattle, Washington. And then my wife is Irish, and I'm here for
you didn't come over for the weather.
No. Or the whiskey, unfortunately, either.
But you're staying for the whiskey, we hope.
I am staying for the whiskey, absolutely.
Look, I wanted to touch, so just to give people an overall view of what you have done. So in terms of finishes, so I just jotted down a few. I've got Shiraz, Merlot, Burgundy, Cabernet Sauvignon, Amarone, Barolo, Tokaji, Muscatel, Calvados, Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, Port, Brandy, Cognac, IPA, and Stout. And I'm sure I've left out a lot. And that's just on casks. So... And they're just off, and they're probably not even half of them.
I think you're missing a couple of them there. I think the rye.
The rye is,
yeah, and just
Riesling.
Riesling, yeah, and lots of Chinese Pinot Noir, and
that's right.
But yeah, look, it's the thing for me is Irish whiskey is a great template and can pick up a lot of subtle flavors from white and red wine. And again, it's a, you know, my view is if you have a good whiskey, you put it in a good cask, you're going to have something pretty decent that comes out the other end. So, you know, and again, I was lucky enough to be there at the start of our innovations in Cooley when we started playing around with different casks. And I saw firsthand like Tyrconnell was evolved, it was changed from one-dimensional style single malt into something a lot more complex and interesting, and was really connecting with consumers and whiskey connoisseurs at all the shows I was going to. So and it was funny. One of the visitors, we used to always get these great visitors. Like Cooley definitely punched above its weight. If we were punching above its weight, we definitely did then. But they all came to see what was going on in Irish whiskey, and they didn't really have anywhere else to go except for us. And one of those visits was the Glenmorangie technical team of Dr. Bill Lumsden, and I can't even remember who else it was, but it was all the senior production people. And, you know, he planted some seeds in our head and said, well, look, white Burgundy and Sauterne and all these white wines would work really well for what I would feel with Irish whiskey, because sometimes it doesn't work so well with Scotch, but Irish, just the nature of what you produce, it could work really well and extenuate some of the fruit flavors. So I was like, suck in all those ideas, and within the first 6 months of setting up Teeling Whiskey Company, we bought all these casks, and you know, it worked, and I wouldn't say it was easy, but it allowed us to make Teeling whiskey different. Yeah, that was so important. But I mean, if we even go back to more fundamentally, it's not just the cask finish either. I think. Is it wine yeast you've been using as well? Yeah. I mean, that's something that very new.
And using both the wooden washbacks and the stainless steel. Yeah, there's a lot of those fairly standard techniques now in the craft beer industry that can be applied to whiskey with great results. And
then also reviving the grain whiskey, I suppose, as well. That was a great success.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of what's what I'm looking for? Guts. I think we've had the strength and the ability to do things in a unique and interesting way that other people might not have.
And is that because you're new, or is it, you know, and maybe don't have the burden of having a reputation, or is it just the plan from the beginning?
I don't know. I think when you're new, every bottle you'll get judged by. So I think you've more to lose nearly at the start than you do. And it's just probably a perception of bigger companies are harder to innovate. That's just it. Like, you know, they're too bureaucratic, and there's a lot of challenges with innovation. You're small and nimble, you can do whatever the hell you want. What were we gambling? We were gambling just our reputation, and which was very important to me. You know, my name on the bottle, obviously it came from somewhere we worked very hard to generate a reputation. So still to this day, we're very concerned that every bottle is as good as it can. But I think we had the confidence. We believed in ourselves that we wanted. I think
the freedom to be bold too with it, right?
You needed to be, and I think, you know, even from the outset, it was a bold move, I think, to actually build a distillery in the heart of Dublin Liberties. That kind of made a statement, I thought, from the very beginning. And I'm just going to share a few of the slides I do have somewhere. Let me see. Okay, so obviously this year you're celebrating 5 years. It's just hard to fathom. You know, you're one of the brands that I've followed from the absolute before you were even built. And it's amazing what's happened in the 5 years. But this is kind of the introduction. But if anybody hasn't been to the distillery in Newmarket Square, I mean, I used to go to this square because of the markets that were there as well at the time. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the whole area has become an uber trendy kind of very much rejuvenated area.
Yeah.
And I don't think you played a small part in that. I think you played a very large part in that, in rejuvenating that area, because the time that you went in is when that sort of started.
Yeah, I think we were lucky. in terms of the timing, because I think if it was later, we wouldn't have been able to afford to go there.
Well, that's true.
And, before we went in, the original planning for that whole area was high-rise, Smithfield type, commercial, residential developments. And obviously they would make a lot more money doing that in good times. So 2012 were bad times. Talking about negative media, like the world was coming to an end in Ireland. It was non-stop. Commercial property was on its knees. So we were lucky from that perspective. But, I think for us, it was very important that we wanted to be a Dublin brand.
Yeah.
And again, as I said, the essence of what we wanted to be was building on tradition, but forging a new future. It sounds like buzzword, but that's true. That's what we wanted to do. Like, we wanted to move on to the past, but, and drag Dublin whiskey and, Teeling whiskey into, 2015 when we managed to open. And, we did that with the design as well. We wanted to have something that was a kind of a mixture of the two. And there's tension there. And I'm sure we got some things wrong, but hopefully we got most things right. And, the best decision we made was that location.
Yeah. But also the design. It is, you're in an urban distillery, and I think from my side, it's the first urban distillery in Ireland, and certainly of the new wave, because you were there at the very beginning of the new wave, and I'm talking 5-6 years ago. Yeah. Maybe there, yourself, Dingle, maybe actually that might have been it at the very beginning. Now you're surrounded by 3 new neighbours. So you
have the same idea, or they just like what we did. I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. The idea came in my Cooley days. I said, if I'm ever going to build a distillery or do something, I would go to Dublin, because I had all the province heritage, and we were seeing firsthand all around the world, be it breweries, be it gin distilleries. They were all going back into cities, and again, they were making themselves relevant to the demographic that was drinking their products, premium spirits, premium beer. And the nail in the coffin that said, look, someone's going to do it, was when, and I've said it a few times before, was the London Distilling Company was set up. Make whiskey in London. I'm like, what the hell? Why isn't someone doing it in Dublin? It's just there's a gap there. And, so I've already mentally processed a lot of the thoughts around, what I would like to do if I was doing it. So when the opportunity came up, it was easy.
The first new distillery for 125 years in Dublin. So
the idea was easy. The execution was very difficult.
Actually.
But like in retrospect, you think like, sure, why isn't that done, right? Like, there's such a long history in Dublin. It's kind of mad that it had ever left.
Yeah, obviously, it's the simplest ideas always seem the best, but they're not that clear sometimes. Obviously, it would have been a hell of a lot cheaper to go and build a distillery outside of Dublin, but what were the challenges in actually building that distillery?
Oh,
I'm going to upset Alex now. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think the building is one part, but getting to a stage to actually break ground, for me was very challenging as well, because the zoning on that area had recently changed, and they were trying to make it less industrial. They wanted industry. Look, the reality was Dublin City didn't want industry in the city. They wanted to push it out to ring roads outside the city, just because they don't want trucks. They don't want the manufacturing heavy lifting going on in the city centre. So we were up against that, and we actually had a local planner who said, look, if you put in your planning application, we're gonna refuse it, and that happened on numerous occasions. So there was a lot of support at a high level, but the reality of the organization, it hadn't filtered down. So we also had challenges finding someone to interpret your view of what a distillery should be. So we had to fire our first design team, because they didn't really get what I was saying, and I would be talking for months, and probably beating them to death with words, and I had it all clear in my head, but what they came back was totally different. So we had to go through a couple of different iterations. And
I remember how they wanted it to be like the BMW facility right in Munich.
Yeah, lovely glass box, and I was like, no, because the whole area was it just seemed wrong. And again, it's just they didn't understand whiskey, and that's sometimes the hardest thing. You sometimes take it for granted that people understand, what is important to whiskey drinkers, and you have to fit in. Yes, if you know what I mean. In the Liberties, because they had so much history there, you just didn't want to ram something in that just really looked out of place.
Yeah, and how have the locals taken to you being there?
Well, we had a couple of break-ins, so they were very happy.
I know that. Yeah, a few round windows.
No, it's we've been very lucky, and I think the proof was in the pudding when we put in our application, and you put it in your planning application, and for people who don't know Irish planning laws or permitting laws, as it would be in the US, is that anyone can object. Doesn't matter what the objection is, doesn't matter where you are. If you have no tangible interest in the area, you can still cause us problems. So we were like, oh God, what's going to happen? We're going to have loads of objections. It's going to delay things further. And, I suppose what we did right was engage with the local community and explain to them what we were doing and why we were doing it, and that we are actually trying to revive something that had been there for a long time, create jobs, actually bring tourists in. It wasn't just going to be a soulless, let's say, office that was dead at nighttime, and different things like that. So we sold it well, and we didn't get one single objection, which was amazing. But look, they've been good to us all the way along, and hopefully we've been good to them as well. It was very important.
Well, that's one point I wanted to bring up, because I don't think you guys get the credit you deserve for what you've done for the area. So obviously you have fairs regularly. So you have your St. Patrick's Day fair, you have your Christmas fair, you have the Christmas tree lighting.
Yeah, the summer fair.
Yeah, and I mean the Christmas tree lighting is always fantastic every year to go and see that.
What we do this year, we don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. But I mean, you allow the facilities to be used for exams. You welcome people in to come to the coffee dock. People can just tour around without having to do the official tour if they don't want to. There's a lot there. And then, of course, one of the big things was you had your first official release, your Pure Pot Still, which was the first release of your own spirit, if you like. And that was obviously a huge occasion. But the first 100 bottles set record prices for auction, and the money raised went to all local causes. So I think you really need to be commended for that. I think that's great. And your other activities that aren't, I think, highlighted, the frontline supporters that you gave a release for. I'm sure that raised a lot of money as well, but there's also the sentiment.
Yeah, reality is the area is underinvested in, and there's a lot of very worthwhile causes around the area. And given that we've been there for basically 6-7 years through the building and so forth, you see it. What we wanted to do was to be a good citizen, and not just to take. We wanted to be able to give back and to make, I don't even know if the locals really understand that. Every year we put in donations from the day we opened. So every full paying tour, we give a percentage back into a local fund, and we give it to, ideally, for younger people, vulnerable people in the area, but also older people who might feel dissociated. That's kind of the ethos that we went with, and we've been continuing to do that. And then when the chance came on our very first release, we didn't want to monetize it for ourselves. We want to monetize it for a good reason. We're delighted with the response to that, and the money hopefully has been put to good use across a wide range of charities. And look, we hope to be able to continue to do so, even though this year, we've fallen a long way. We had a great year last year for the visitor centre. This year is not going to be so good, but we'll do our best to support in the Shining Centre, and with the frontline heroes in particular.
Well, that's a bottle there. The frontline heroes. That would have raised.
It was just everyone wanted to do something. Give we all felt like I felt, helpless in that. Like, what could you do? So why can't you give people something that they want, and also make them feel like they're contributing? And I just felt like it was a good thing to do, and we're delighted. It sold out super quick in the Celtic Whiskey shop. I think at that time was probably the fastest sellout they had. I'm not sure if it's been beaten since then.
Oh, it went in a day, I think. It was gone.
An hour and a half, because we watched it.
Wow.
Which is brilliant. But like, that just explains that everyone wanted to do something, and it's only a small thing in the bigger scheme of things, but we didn't want to feel helpless. We want to feel like we could actually do something.
Well, like, wanting and doing are two different things. So, I mean, you did it. Here we see the Christmas market. I always think it's a great. It'd be such a shame if that doesn't happen this year. But look, if it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll understand. That's the nature of things.
We're thinking can we bring it virtually to life in a way? We don't know. We're trying to see. But my kids are now even asking, because they love it as well. It's a real family occasion for us as much as the location. We go in and they have their s'mores and their hot chocolate, and I really enjoy it. It's a great energy, and
can you have a social distance chocolate fountain? Is that possible?
The chocolate fountain got destroyed last year. I couldn't even believe it. Like,
there's a couple of questions. A couple of questions came in. Eric was asking, maturation doesn't take place in Dublin. It takes place in Greenore, if I'm not mistaken.
With the exception of 3 casks. We have 3 very important.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So those 3 casks are after Jack's kids.
Single pastel, and then
Stevens, are they?
Yeah.
Okay. And the stills, the Prilly stills, even that was something quite different to get stills brought in from Prilly. What was the thinking behind that? And obviously, you've named them after your daughters.
Again, I'll just be very frank and honest. Well, we went, like Alex and me, we went over and we met Forsyths, obviously great guys, know what they're doing. But at that time, and probably still now, there was just huge delays. Like, you're talking 24 months. And I was like, this is copper. It's copper. That's it. It's not like science. Like, this is, there's a science to it, obviously. But it's not like rocket science, I meant to say. Alex was sent around Europe trying to find.
I emailed everybody and their second cousin looking for people who had any experience in making copper stills, or thought that they had experience in making copper stills. Yeah. And those guys in Friuli down in Italy, more than anything else, I think we thought that we could work with them. We had questions and they had questions, and some of the questions were the same questions, and they would be frank and honest and say, well, we don't really know the answer to that. I'd say, well, I don't really know the answer to this other question that you have here, but I'm pretty sure we do something like this. And they'd say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And you knew that they had most of the answers, and they had the experience, and they had the expertise to be able to make the copper stills right, and that they also had the ability to work with us for things that wouldn't necessarily go according to plan. Now, I'd say 95% of it went better than planned, but you wanted to get in a situation where somebody was going to be a partner with you, as opposed to supplying you with something that wasn't what you wanted and then trying to walk away.
Yeah, obviously it's worked out well for them, because they're in several distilleries now around the country. So
they were looking to get into the industry, and we were looking to try and get copper stills that weren't going to take 2 years to make.
So so for the time, the engagement and reality, they had the experience, and having gone over and kicked the tires of their manufacturing capabilities. Look, we didn't jump in without doing the research, and we have been recommended by some very senior industry people that these guys knew what they were doing. So and they worked out well for us, and I'm delighted to see Friuli stills around Ireland and in Scotland as well.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things that might be an issue for you, and hopefully sooner rather than later, will be capacity. And have you, what are you, about 1 million LPA a year?
We were literally talking about this today.
Okay. I was listening.
A bit of a sore subject there. Yeah, no. We're at about 500,000 LPA in production right now. Now the distillery has the ability to ramp up to 1.2 million, and if you really wanted to push it, you could probably go a bit more than that. So just a few little tricks and things you can do. But and that's a fairly good size distillery, especially for city center.
Yeah, at the moment there'd be two things preventing us from ramping up substantially. One would be people, in terms of having enough distillers on the team to be able to do it. The other one, really, and hopefully we can remedy this, is demand. So if you produce 1 million liters of single malt, pot still, and so forth, we just I suppose we're not there yet in terms of having the demand for that, and also would eat up a lot of our working capital. And so a couple of challenges there to get around, but we've been, obviously, as you saw on that, we've laid down around 3 million liters already. And we're hopefully set up to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that we think will come about over the next number of years.
But the really important thing to say in there is it's not just the total production, it's what you make, right?
Of course.
So we have the ability to use different specialty malts, that we have the ability to take advantage of whatever fermentation techniques we want to, that we have the flexibility in the stills and then the design and setup of the plant to be able to produce different styles of whiskey, so that we're not just making one Teeling single malt style of whiskey. We can make single pot still, we can make peated, we can make a variety of different whiskeys, and continue to innovate in that direction.
Tina is on from Germany. She was asking, there's two products that are fully your own distillate at the moment. That's the pot still and the new black pits. But has the distillate made its way into the base products yet? And will it be doing so over a period of time?
Good question. And yes, it has. It already into the small batch, and small batch now, and the bottlings are coming out, has personalization on the bottle in terms of there's embossing with Teeling Whiskey and so forth. We've subtly changed the label since 1782 to Reborn 2012. And that is to symbolize the utilization of single malt from Newmarket, and also grain sourced from the father's distillery.
Very good.
So we're through it, and very, very happy with the outcome. We actually probably feel it's a superior product. We have the rum aging process and so forth. So we've learned a lot over the last number of years, and it's coming through. And next year you'll see an evolution of our single malt as well. So we're getting to where we want to be with our core products, utilizing the whiskey that we have. And I suppose the core of what we were trying to do was to try and produce a Dublin style and whiskey, but a style that was also similar in a way in terms of some of the fruit notes that were there, so that we could introduce into our existing products without having a massive difference in taste.
Well, speaking of which, I was going to crack open my my go-to whiskey at the moment. Is this
it tells no lies.
The black bottle, yes, it's completely full, and I'm going to have a glass of the. Alex, maybe you can take us through this black pits, because for those that don't know, this is your first peated Irish whiskey from the distillery.
Yeah, so this is the black pits. This is our peated single malt. And what the innovation is there was a couple of innovations in there, but the big one is triple distilling. So we've created a triple distilled peated single malt. We felt that Dublin has that great tradition of triple distilling, right? And so how do we keep that history and that tradition alive, right? But try and present a new product in a new way. And so it was trying to go to a bit of our history around peated single malts, right? But to come at it from a new direction. There I am looking stylish, and Stephen.
That's the night, I think, of the Aviators Society was when we first got to taste this.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and actually,
it's great to have events like that, right? It's great to be able to take 4 or 5 different possibilities and versions of things, and to have 50 or 60 people try them, and to get right away very honest, very frank feedback as to I like this, or no, I don't like this, or I don't quite get it.
I still have my tasting mat from that, and I always put notes against them, and the only note I put against the peated one was release now.
Yeah.
So you see, you've made me wait quite a long time for this, but look, Sláinte, congratulations on the release.
Thank you.
And well wishes to all those that are affected as well.
Yeah, no, we're delighted. It's something that we were very keen to do from the start. Obviously, we had to wait until we had the distillery up and running, and we started making our peated single malt in 2016. We were. I'm not sure if people have heard the story, but I've said a couple of times now. When we did triple distill the spirit, I remember Alex coming up to me in the distillery where we were doing some work in our offices or something like that, and he goes, "Something not right. It doesn't taste right. It's have a go." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a bit different. Like, it's not very smoky. What's going on?" Like, because
I was waiting for like 3 days for the peat to start coming through on the stills, and it just wasn't arriving. It wasn't, I was like, oh man, I thought, okay, it's going to take a while for the faints to start to get a base level in there,
yeah.
but eventually it'll start to work its way up and crawl out, right? And we were like day 4, and there was nothing changing. And I was like, because you start out with very high phenol levels in the malt. We're at 55 ppm, which is the highest that you can get commercially available peated malts at.
Okay.
So you're in your head, you're thinking this is going to be a big beast that's going to come out, and it's going to have loads of smoke and loads of fire, and then when you get what the Black Pits is, which is more of that barbecue, smoky, I don't want to say muted, but refined.
Absolutely. It's not a smack in your face peated whiskey by any means. It is. Yeah. It is so well balanced.
At the beginning, you can imagine, right? The like, are we doing this right? Like, is this what? I knew it wasn't going to be 55 ppm, but I was thinking maybe 35 we'd get out, and it's 15. So you're kind of like, and that's why I was nervous going up to Jack and saying, like, it's not bad, but it's not what we were expecting either.
It's pretty expensive malted barley. So exactly. Look, I
can imagine.
For me, it was a pleasant surprise because it was different. And again, I say it every time. What's what we wanted, I would say, look, we got to, let's keep going, because this is what we're all about. We can try and make a big smack in the face one, which again, we've experimented around with doing, but this for me was interesting, and
absolutely
it worked really well in terms of using the combination of the bourbon and the Sauternes and the learnings that we had from our.
Well, that's another addition that adds to it, I think, is that, a peated whiskey in a Sauternes cask. It's unusual, highly unusual as well. But I mean, going back to that the phenol levels. I mean, if you take an Octomore and you take a Caolilla, I mean, the Caolilla has a lot less ppm of phenol, but still knocks the socks off an Octomore in cases. It can be. So it's not necessarily a direct measure, is it?
It's not all chemistry, right? It's
yeah.
Your mouth and your palate and your nose perceive that. Yeah.
I really take my hats off you on this, and I think it's probably the most significant release of the year. And I say that, I'm not saying it's the best, but it's very, very significant in the sense that it's a larger of the producers bringing a very accomplished peated whiskey to the masses, I think. And from that, it's easily approachable and very enjoyable to drink, and it's not going to scare off somebody that hasn't tried peated before. But it'll still appeal.
I remember at that Aviators event, people talking about it being the bridge between Islay and Ireland. Yeah.
But look, I mean, I'll congratulate you on the bottling as well. Superb bottle. And how many bottles are there going to be? Is that a limited run, or is that main production run now going forward?
So we produce only a certain amount every year.
Right.
We allocate, a relatively small amount of our overall production to it. So we are limited. But we do want it to be part of our core offering. Because we feel it has a role to play for us, but also for Irish whiskey and Irish single malts in particular. So, we will strive to keep it available, but, there will be, depending how successful it is, or if we got, let's say, for example, a listing in Systembolaget in Sweden, it'll make it a little bit harder to have it regularly available in every market. But, we feel this, some markets probably not, but other markets which understand single malts, peated single malts, and Irish, we feel there's a great opportunity.
What's the price on this, Jack? Sorry, I think it's below 50, is it?
No, it's not. It's,
is it not? Oh, sorry, 70. Was it?
Give it away. Come on.
Maybe it was the discount.
It's 60 euros in Ireland. Probably be a bit cheaper in some of the European markets, just with taxes and so forth. In the US, it's going to be around $70. So we actually have shipped some to the US. If anyone from the US, I don't think they're going to actually officially release it until January, but it will be available there as well.
It's what age is there? Is there an age? There's no age statement, but
no. So
4-year-old.
4-year-old at least, yeah.
And what I find is younger peat has a bit of vibrancy about it.
Certainly does.
So and kind of works for what we're trying to achieve with this. As I said, it's our oldest peated Dublin distilled stock in the first bottling.
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing a trend now of some super exclusives coming out with a hint of peat, and then there are a number of producers, obviously, that are introducing it. But to be a bit widely available on a mass scale and to be at a great price, I think, as well, and approachable is excellent. So best of luck with it. I hope it's here to stay. I've waited long enough for it. As I think
we'll have a special allocation just for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to need it. But no, because it is something different and it's something to get excited about. But then you've had other releases during the year, and obviously COVID has knocked back your schedule and affected your schedule. What's in the pipeline that you can excite us about?
Well, it's interesting. Alice can tell you. I'll tell you about what we decided to do. We were very hesitant. We had lots of different things planned, and we felt, do we launch, a 500 euro bottle of whiskey, during all this madness? Is it the right thing to do? Where people kind of go, Jesus, who the hell do you think these guys are? So we gave it a lot of thought, but we felt that, we wanted to have something that we could talk about in a positive way. We can move on from some of the stuff that was going on. So we decided that we'd launch two of them together. We launched the Brabazon 3 and our 28-year-old for Father's Day. Or actually, sorry, no, I got it wrong. World Whiskey Day, sorry. And we got out there. And to be honest with you, I was blown away with the response internationally. And all our customers wanted something. And it
won an award, didn't it? The 28-year-old best single malt.
Yeah, won
IWS.
As the overall best Irish whiskey. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Is it the basis? Was the 24-year-old? Is that an extension of the 24-year-old that won best single malt?
Yeah, same casts. Yeah.
So the 21 Beverage Tasting Institute in the US gave 99 out of 100. 24-year-old won the world's best single malt. The IWSC voted the 28-year-old the best Irish whiskey. It comes from good caliber, and we're blessed to have that stock. That's where the inspiration came for Black Pits in terms of the Sauterne casks. A little bit of there really, is very interesting. But if you tried the 21-year-old, 28-year-old, the peat's less pronounced. Actually, the peat flavors, like a black bowmore, they're evolving into these kind of real rich, complex fruit flavors. And so, it's amazing. And we will have next year a follow-on, probably 30-year-old version of that as well.
So you have two 30-year-olds at the moment. You brought out the one in the black lacquer box. You brought out the recent 30-year-old. This is the
white burgundy is the most recent,
That's right, yeah.
That's the big brother of the original 26-year-old that we had.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Those ones are all crackers. I do have a sample of the 28-year-old that somewhere here. Hold on.
I have a bottle here somewhere as well. Hold on.
Yeah. No, I will not. I won't drink that after the peach because that would be a waste. Yeah.
So this is the 28. So just an evolution of the packaging of the 24-year-old.
Yeah.
And having tasted it only last night against the 24-year-old, it is, it's just the evolution of the actual whiskey, and it's, as you said, we're blessed to have this stock, and hopefully we're releasing it in a way that respects and celebrates the amazing whiskey that it is.
Yeah, it's been interesting to track those now over, from the 21 to 23 to 24, to track them as they do progress and get older. And funny enough, some of them, the majority get better. One or two had a blippy year, if you don't mind me saying. But, it's amazing how they do vary. You do go on that journey with them. And that's one of the things I like about the whiskies you release. You are taken on journeys. Like the pot still, the first 3 releases, you were taken on a journey with those. I'm sure that's still evolving.
So we learned a lot from the different releases.
Sure.
Definitely. And, that was the point. It was more live market research with products in the market, which is risky. But we did learn a lot. Would I do it again? Probably not, I'll be honest with you. But I think we did end up with something that's quite interesting and is maturing quite nicely as well.
No, I actually think it's a really good thing to be, and I'm not saying fail in public, but I mean to take risks and maybe not always come up, 10 out of 10. It's good to have failures and learn from it. And then,
right, you need to have to actually push the boundaries and do something that someone else isn't doing. Right, there's a potential to fail, and so right, you're not going to knock it out of the park every time you step up to the bat, but you need to try and step up to the bat and give it your best shot each time.
Yeah. Our friend Liam from Scotland is asking, do you still have the 74-year-old that your father spoke to me about?
I don't have it. He might have it somewhere. Definitely, Teeling Whiskey Company unfortunately doesn't have it. So I'm sure Mr. Teeling Senior has it squirreled up somewhere.
Well, obviously, your latest release, your oldest release now to date, the 37-year-old came out. And obviously, you've got a bottle for everybody listening. But that is a progression of that 30, 33, 30, 34 release, and then now the 37. So I know it was in excess of 5,000, I think, per bottle, wasn't it?
7,000 in Ireland. Again, it's sold. It's our fastest selling super premium vintage reserve, offering. It's like it's sold out now.
Wow.
Literally, we have a couple of bottles in the distillery, and we're trying to figure out how we can get out of the distillery because our customers are still looking for it. So there's a big latent demand for rare Irish whiskies.
Is that home or abroad, those super ultra premium ones?
More abroad, to be honest with you. Obviously, there's some in Ireland and some in the UK. We sold a lot of this in Asia, through our partner in Taiwan and China, Singapore and places like that. So they understand, or they like aged super premium products. They see it as a status symbol, and probably easier for us selling that type of product than our small batch in a market like China, to be honest with you. There's definitely an appetite for it.
Yeah. In terms of, we talked about this briefly earlier offline, on the premiumization, and the market growth is really on the premium end and on the super cheap end. You don't really play in the super cheap end, but on the premium side, do you see that sustaining and finding new markets?
Yeah. Look, I think that's where it's going to be at, and particularly with the markets that have been delivering the growth for Irish whiskey over the last 15, 20 years, just a natural evolution of the category. If we don't see it there, well, then Irish whiskey's in trouble. I'll be honest with you. So, and by not having choice and interesting expressions and fully distilled products coming of age and being available, we'll miss that opportunity. So I think, what's happened over the last 8 years since 2012 to where we are now, it's needed for Irish whiskey to continue growing, because otherwise you lose relevancy, because people who get, they come in through the main brands, but they want more flavor, they want more character. That's just natural progression. If they can't get it within Irish whiskey, then they're going to go somewhere else. Or if they don't perceive Irish whiskey to be, I don't know, relevant enough for them or crafted for them, they'll go into a different category. So there's a great opportunity there. And I see in the mature markets for Irish whiskey, the biggest opportunity is in the premium and super premium end of the market, or as you say, in the more value orientated, but probably more so in the premium end, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But
Alex, I suppose
the company has done a great job of creating those steps. We have done a great job of giving people a way to go from a premium product to those ultra rare, very limited release, high end, right? And that there's different rungs along the way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you've done that. No, it's hurt my bank balance. But look, listen, Alex, I wanted to ask you, growing up in the States, what was your perception of Irish whiskey, and what is it today?
Yeah, my perception, I think, growing up in the U.S. was Irish whiskey was that thing. There was the St. Patrick's Day, right? Like you've got to get a bottle of Jameson for St. Patrick's Day. And then there was also that Protestant Catholic troubles sort of thing with Bushmills, and I still get questions about that, about is this a Catholic or a Protestant whiskey? And you're like, well, it's not really either of those things, right? But I think what I had really liked as somebody outside of the industry were the green spots, were the unusual whiskeys that were even, I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. Even the Green Ore, right? The whiskeys that were pushing the boundaries and going ways that Scotch wasn't, and Canadian wasn't, and bourbon certainly wasn't either, right? And so I think there's always been a lot of possibility in the Irish category that maybe has been underdeveloped. And I think that Teeling's done a lot to try and develop those possibilities and going into different directions, be it super aged premium single malt, or taking a traditional Irish blend and giving a new interpretation of that, right? I think there's a lot of potential there in Irish whiskey.
And I was asked this question, I get asked it a lot actually. How do you define, and I'm not talking at a technical level here, because Irish whiskey, in a sense, is still looking for an identity other than the brand Ireland identity. Is there an Irish whiskey identity, or is it just a patchwork quilt of just lots of different whiskeys that gel well?
I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest with you. I think that we're really at that stage, and what excites me as a craft brewer from the 90s, it's like pale ale was in 1995, right? Like, what is a pale ale? Is it going to be a new Northwest interpretation of it? Is it going to be a New England pale ale? And I think Irish whiskey has that opportunity also. I think that we're seeing a lot of oxygen, a lot of breath coming into the category. People are trying new things, going in new directions. I think that's great. I think that we need that. I think as long as the quality remains high, that's a good thing, right? That's only going to result in the established brands doing more unique and unusual limited release bottlings, and opportunities for the Teeling Whiskey Company and others to grow too.
Yeah,
I think that you do need to stay Irish, though, and that Irish whiskey for me is fruity, light, approachable, has an underlying honey sweetness to it, right? It certainly technically can go in a bourbon or in a Japanese or in a Canadian direction, but I think that what makes Irish whiskey Irish is the climate, is the place, is the people, that are making it, and so I think there's a lot of different things that can be done innovation-wise, and as long as we keep the quality good, then we'll be on the right path.
I mean, is that the biggest challenge now? That's our biggest threat, really. I was going to talk about threats to the industry, and I was going to talk about trade wars and Brexit and COVID, but I mean, complacency and low quality, I suppose, are our biggest obstacles in one side. The ones we can control.
I think we've come a long way in the last 8 years for complacency and low quality. There isn't a lot. The bar has definitely been raised, right, as far as quality in the last 8 years.
Yeah, well, to go back to your original question, I think there's a great opportunity for Irish whiskey to forge a new identity and to actually build on all the good work that's there, because there's still large parts of the world that have no real understanding of Irish whiskey. But at the core of that is what makes Irish whiskey different is it's from Ireland. So there will be the Irishness that's there. But the perception of Ireland is a very interesting question, because we don't want to have the all about the rolling hills and so forth. Like, Ireland is a interesting young country, and I think that I found was a great opportunity that we could present that side of Ireland, not the old. What's going on today. And what's going on today is interesting. We are a well-educated, confident nation. Maybe come through so much anymore with COVID-19.
No, but I think that's one reason why.
Dynamic,
Yeah, I think that's one reason why you tapped a very important market, is that it's not the Ireland of the old, rolling hills and leprechauns and all the rest. It's a much more confident, and you came about when Ireland was regaining its confidence again as well. We talk about the Celtic Tiger, and that was probably the first wave. The second wave, hopefully, we've learned a little bit more. But I mean, it is Ireland in a more modern sense being brought to the fore, and I think you represent that very strongly, and you tapped into it well.
Well, we're trying to. And I'll be honest with you, that is the core of what we're trying to achieve, and that to make sure that Irish whiskey, you produce a world-class whiskey that represents Ireland in the right way. That's important to us and what we do and who we support or what we end up doing. But yeah, on the quality side, I think we're only getting into the challenges now, and particularly with so many distilleries only really starting over the last number of years. It'll be interesting to see, can they all produce high quality whiskey?
Yeah.
Are probably not. Let's just be cost.
Well, what do you make of the? I mean, what were there? 5 distilleries when you kicked off? Now we're at 34. What do you make of that?
I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's kind of what's needed in terms of the energy, and it's a symbol of the vibrancy within the category, and also I suppose the opportunity. Let's say there's not a shortage of entrepreneurship in Ireland, that's for sure. Yeah. But is there room for them all? My view is if you carve out your own identity and who you are, and you embody that into your liquid and into your brand and how you represent yourself. Yeah, there is.
See, that's the challenge now. I mean, with
let's
say,
But that's you're not going to succeed in the industry if you're just going to come out and do another Teeling or Jameson. It just doesn't work. I've seen it. I've seen big companies try it and it doesn't work. So
look, I've seen
that's the scar tissue that we have from Cooley. That's the experience that we have from Cooley. Is seeing that he's not throwing $1 million budget at something and trying to package another Irish blend at 40% alcohol. It's €5 cheaper, right? That doesn't work. You have to.
I mean, there is sometimes the very negative view that we sometimes get here that, and I get it. I get it asked all the time. We're 34 now. We're probably going to have 50. Most of them won't survive. But if you take any business at all, you open a restaurant. If any businesses of those have the same percentage success, restaurants are notorious. 1 in 10 survive more than magazines. 1 in 100 survive more than 2 years. But so it's a good strike rate.
Right. In the 90s in Portland, there was 20 breweries. And people were saying it's flooded. So there's too many. Half of them are going to be gone, right? Yeah. And you go back to Portland now, and there's 140, right? Yeah. Is it going to get to that level? I don't think it's going to get to that level because a lot of those are very small, localized, micro, very mini breweries. But
yeah, I mean, there's 2,000 distilleries in the States, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of the newer guys they're fairly small.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see them all. A lot of them raise money, which is amazing. That's one of the hardest challenges. I think they will find it difficult to find distributors and invest in the marketing and so forth. It's hard. Look, it's not easy.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, well, everyone's trying to do it, but
that's the other thing. Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's their opportunities are there. They're there, and the best thought out products, plans, distilleries, whiskies will succeed.
Yeah.
And there will be some cash.
The consumer will decide. The consumer will decide at the end of the day.
Consolidation and support. So one or two players might suck up one or two of the smaller guys. Who knows? But it's interesting, and this is what we need. We need the competition. We need the energy that new entrants bring. And look, it pushes us on. All the new guys now doing more.
Well, I mean, just as you pushed on the more established players, I mean, the newer ones are pushing as well. I'll just go back on what's possibly coming out, Alex. I remember having a chat with you. We've talked about other woods that you've used and potentially will use in the future. So you've used chestnut, you've used some Hungarian oak. Yeah, I've heard rumors of a more local oak possibly in the future.
Yeah, we have had an Irish oak release there from the distillery.
That was the Frontline Hero. We used Irish oak.
That's right.
So but we have that. We've other interesting things. I don't know if the wood, Alex.
Yeah, we did a whole tasting there online of the wonders of wood with acacia and the chinkapin. Chinkapin was in there, and what's the South American hardwood one? I forget about it.
Yeah.
What?
Amburana.
Amburana, exactly. Amburana, chestnut, cherry. What I've been really impressed with, and that going back to your original point there about engaging with consumers, when you do these Zoom tastings with people and they taste stuff where you're thinking, I don't know, is this too far? Did we go too? And then at the end of the day, people are more excited about cherry wood and they're more excited about the Amburana than they are about Japanese oak. Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. That people, I think, if you build it, they will come, right? Like they are looking for unique and unusual and wild and wacky whiskeys out there. And as long as the flavors are good, as long as they're bold and strong in a unique way, right? People will. I'm not saying that's going to sell 1 million cases. I'm not saying that you're going to just take Jack Daniels off the throne, but you can do unique whiskeys, and there's a market for them. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you keep pushing the customer with such a wide variety that they come to expect new challenges as well after a while. So
they're always looking for something new. Even when you have the new whiskey, even when you're like, "This is our new whiskey," people are like, "What's new?" And
well, somebody was asking me one question they told me to ask you, and they wanted to know about crystal malt.
Crystal malt. There you go. Wow, I'm happy to say that the new release of our single malt that we're going to be having, what Jack was talking about there, is going to have a crystal malt component in it. And that was the whole reason for doing crystal malt. Crystal malt wasn't just a weird guy from Portland, Oregon wanting to do something strange. There was a method to the madness, if you will, there of how can we try to create a certain flavor profile in Irish whiskey. And
can you tell us about crystal malt briefly before we say exactly what it brings?
Yeah, what it brings. What it brings is basically caramel and toffee. So what you do in the crystal malt process is you malt barley, right? You steep it in water and you allow that seed to germinate and start to grow. And then normally you would drain the water out and you would dry it, and that would create your malted barley. And that's where you get your biscuit, barley, cream cereal flavors from. Well, what you can do is you can put that water in there, right, and you can stew it. And in the same way that you would create caramel toffee on your stovetop in your house, right, you start to do that inside the husk. And those flavors come across in the distillate. So what you get is you get a whiskey that even straight off the still has a caramel toffee rich roundness to it, right? And then you can throw that into some unique casks and start to really play around with the flavor profiles and create a whiskey that is still light, smooth, approachable, has those honey layers in there, right? But is doing it in a different way. It's not coming at the end result from the same place. And that's been very interesting and exciting. We've also got the Brabazon 4 that we're going to be bottling up. That's with the Carcavelos casks. So the white port from Portugal. An amazing winery, located right outside of Lisbon that makes some really unique and unusual fortified wines. And we've had the pleasure of getting their casks and making some amazing whiskey from it. I was talking with Jack about that today. You talk about the 24-year-old, you talk about the 28-year-old. That Brabazon 4 is right up there with that kind of level.
Will we see that before Christmas?
Yeah, we're gonna bottle it before Christmas. Probably only available in Ireland. I would say it'd be hard to get it out to wider markets before Christmas. But what did you say, Alex? You said this is the
best one we've done.
The best single malt we've ever done. So
wow,
I haven't tasted it in a couple of weeks or months at this stage. But you have a sample for me, Alex. I got to get my lips rolling.
Pretty out there.
Confirm that.
I think Shawnee. It's either Shawneen or Shawneen Sullivan or Michael Fogarty asking, would you use other beer malts, say Munich or Cara?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about that. We're talking about there's double crystal now.
Yeah, talking about this today. Someone's bugged our room.
I'm starting to worry myself, but it wasn't me.
So we allocate an extra amount, let's say only around 25,000 liters or so, to do a batch of something innovation, of something weird and different. I wouldn't say weird, but just different every year. And we're looking at taking some inspiration from the brewing industry if we can, in terms of some of the malting methods, to see if we can source it on a commercial scale to do it next year. So
that's the hard part, right? How do you get a quantity that we can really make something with? Because you can't just get 25 kg bags of it. You have to get 2 or 3 lorry loads. And so, you can go and you can look at the smoked malts from Germany, or you got your cherry smoked malt, cherrywood smoked malt, right? But a 25 kg bag isn't going to do me any good. I need 15 tons at least to try and make something.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing people forget, I think, is, you try the peated, you try the crystal malt. That obviously has a big effect on your downtime, in terms of you need to clear up everything in between, and getting rid of the smell of peat, and I imagine crystal isn't that easy.
Yeah, and there's a huge gamble that you take every time that you mill in with a new raw material, right? You don't know what is that going to do to your mill. Is it going to work? Is that I set aside at least 10 days of production every time we're going to do something that we haven't done before, for mistakes, for the mill blocking, and we're going to have to get in there with gloves on and try and get it unstuck, and all of the different heartache that you have. And you when you're doing it, you're thinking, why am I doing this? Like, we could just make regular single malt, right? Like, it just would be so much easier.
It would be boring, wouldn't it, though?
Yeah, but it would be boring. Yeah. And then it's in 3 years or 4 years' time, you're not going to have something crazy to come out with, and people going, what? Crystal rye? I've never even heard of that before. So,
Well, I was going to ask another question in terms of, have you ever come up with something that you thought was going to be brilliant? Initially, it was a complete disaster, and then ended up turning out way beyond your expectations.
Stuff that didn't go according to plan. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that there's been some where you think, oh, I was hoping that it was going to go more fruity, and it's gone more spicy. And you know what? It's still a good whiskey. So The one that I always like talking about here, Jack, is the
yeah. Jack is listening, and I can see he's a bit worried.
Something to add to this. Go on, keep going.
The aquavit. I remember the guys getting excited about aquavit casts, and I don't like aquavit. I'll be completely honest. I don't find aquavit nice at all. And so we got these casts in, and we thought, okay, we'll fill them with some whiskey, and we'll see what's coming out of it. And I was really pleasantly surprised that when you tone down that caraway spiciness, right, there is an underlying floral fruitiness there that's quite nice. And I think it's a lovely whiskey. I think it really makes a nice whiskey, but it's not the aquavit in your face spice that I was expecting that it was going to be. And that was a positive one.
That was yeah. I remember we got offered them from one of our high quality coopers, and we were like, nah, not really too keen. He goes, sure, look, I'll throw one in for free. Just see what you think. And yeah, as you said, it's not until you try that you're going to see if it works. Another one that stands out was it's probably come out the other side was schnapps from
really
distiller. Yeah, and we got it, and it just didn't work. The start just was, oh my god, this was a mistake. And it's been in there for quite some time, and it's totally come full circle into something that is quite interesting. And we're trying to figure out how the best way would be to release it. So you really don't know what you're going to get. You have an idea. You know the base wine. Yeah, you hope. And you put something good in, and you just have to wait and see. And look, I think that's the fun element of it. And, we've had great fun playing around with different rum casks, be it pineapple rum, be it, different.
That pineapple rum was a big success. That disappeared very quickly, and it actually tastes fantastic.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't expect it to, I thought it would be a purely cocktail whiskey, but I actually really enjoy it on its own.
Well, the plantation guys are pretty clued in there. They know their stuff, and they have a lot of innovation projects. I think we do a lot. They do something crazy. So.
There are all sorts of weird eggs. I don't even know what. And you're like, huh? What are you
Mick McGuire is asking, would you do a bog oak again, Alex?
I was even thinking about that.
Are you bugged?
I have a bottle up there, actually.
The old Connemara bog oak.
That's probably a good example of not going quite to plan. I thought we were going to use 5,000-year-old bog oak, and it was going to have all of these tannins and phenols, right? And it was just going to it's going to take the peat to like a whole new level, because you're going to have that oak that's just been absorbing all of that peat, right, for over those thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. And when we matured the whiskey in it, there was this underlying orange, spicy caramel toffee note, and I was like, it's nice, but it's not what I was expecting, really. It's an interesting kind of one. And I was like, it's kind of like European oak. And then you're like, duh, it's 5,000-year-old European oak, Alex. Like that's what it's going to be like, right? Yeah. So would I do it again? Why wouldn't you just get some really nice French limousine oak and get the same results, right?
It was an interesting one. I remember did take some time to convince me that it was something that we should do.
Yeah, I mean, where do the ideas originate from? And I'm not suggesting that you're in any way schizophrenic or multiple personalities, Alex, but where do you come up with? I mean, do you go through a list and see what possible boxes there are?
Google and like, okay, somebody says something to you and you think, oh yeah, I think I know what that means, and then you look it up and you realize, no, I have no idea what Pinot de Charente is. Yeah, and there's other things that people come to, like Pinot de Charente's a good example, right? Where our architect George Boyle, she was the one that said, I really love Pinot de Charente and you should try it. And I thought she meant kind of Pinot wine, and I had no idea what they were talking. So you get a bit of reputation. You get people coming to you and saying, we've got some unique and unusual casks. Are you interested in it? The Purple Muscat one that we've been looking at recently.
The Hungarian oak one, I think.
Yeah, Hungarian oak one also. Yeah.
I wonder who brought that.
I think I saw him earlier, and he's keeping a low profile at the moment. But Zoltan is being quiet at the moment. He's behaving, but he'll come up with something new, I'm sure, before long. But hello, Zoltan, if you're listening in from Hungary. Well, I mean, obviously you have these ideas. We talked about the different yeast strains. We talked about the different casks and the different finishes and different grains. And I know you did some experimentation with rye, and you did some in Kilbeggan particularly. Do you think the technical file gives you the scope to be able to experiment as much as you would like?
I think that it's a box, right? And is it a pretty good box? Yeah, it probably is a pretty good box, and that it strikes the balance between being able to do things like rye, being able to do things like bog oak and different unusual, interesting things out there, right? But also keeps it from going completely crazy. Is it right? Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. But it's a compromise, right? Yeah. And I think as long as
when we were doing it, it was impossible to future-proof it. That was the reality of it. So no one foresaw back when the engagement between Cooley, Diageo, and Irish Distillers to write GI in conjunction with the IWA, no one could perceive where we are now. So I think hindsight again is great.
No, absolutely. And I think having spoken to it's not a closed book, and it's something that can evolve if they need it to evolve, and there's consensus to evolve. I think that's a good omen. But I'm kind of, for your guys' sake, I'm glad there is a little bit restricted, because I hate to think how many different releases we would have if it was a more open book. If you could have 20% rye and 30%, I'd be worried for you guys. But look, it's the nature of your.
I think there's a lot of levers that you can still turn in terms of innovation, and we've done a lot with wood types and casks. We're doing a good bit with yeast, and we're doing a good bit with different mash bills and so forth. And other people are doing the same in different ways. So there is still scope to innovate. It's just. Reality is it's what's in the bottle, and then the label. It's just the classification element of it. I don't think there's any restrictions of what people can do. They can produce anything nearly from whatever cereals and call it Irish whiskey. You might be able to, pot still or whatever classification you might end up in. So there's still scope there. And look, everything else over the next 10, 20, 30 years, I'm sure things will evolve. And as you can see, with in Scotland, there has been tweaks or contemplating tweaks to what they have, because again, what worked 10 years ago, it changes so quickly. It's impossible.
No, I mean the market needs to evolve, and I think technical files and whatever they will mature and evolve over time. Just a quick question here from John, who's I think it's a compliment. Who designs and decides on the amazing packaging designs? Alex, that's you, isn't it?
No.
I would have, let's say, very strong views on packaging, and we work with a tight group of designers, and some of the designers that we would have worked with for many years, so they kind of understand what I'm looking for. But I think it's important to the packaging to reflect the whiskey and also the brand. And that's why I suppose we've chosen the styles of bottle, the type of bottles, even the iconography that we used. That was our idea after not liking what designers had come up with. So I think we know who we are, what we want to be, and I think we're lucky that the design teams that we've worked with understand and can translate that. So
it's very hard. It can be incredibly hard, and I've seen it from our side, to get a designer that sees your vision and sees the identity that you want. And an awful lot of the time that can be
it's much easier to say no, right? As opposed to
absolutely. Absolutely.
Actually, for them and be very prescriptive. So
we did we touched on, or you touched on speaking with your family or working with your family, Jack, and of course you said you didn't particularly want to work with your father, but you have Stephen on board as well. What's that like working with Stephen?
ask Stephen that. So I'm the older brother, like, and see what but no, it's Stephen came on board, Alex 2012, June 2012, I think Alex came on board. Stephen came early enough in 2013. And at that stage, we were kind of, small batch was just going out there. We're getting at a stage to kind of go out and to have 2 Teelings in the Teeling Whiskey Company going out around the world, spreading the world. And also, there's an element of understanding, element of, trust that you get from just family members that you can't get from anyone else. No offense, Alex, or anything. I trust you, but it's I spent my life with Stephen. So
well, your father said you didn't fight growing up, but I don't know, Alex. Do they fight now much?
It takes a few whiskeys, and
it takes a few.
Don't be talking out of school, will you? Jeez.
Kevin O'Connell, I think from Germany as well, is asking, you actually have a huge following in Germany, and I noticed that there's a huge interest in Irish whiskey in general in Germany. But Kevin's asking, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
As a brand, or
I presume as a brand and not personally.
Caribbean hiding from COVID-19.
Yeah.
No, look, I still think 5 years can go very quickly in this industry. It's a medium long-term industry. 5 years ago, obviously, the distillery was opened, so I think we will be doing what we're doing now. Hopefully, we've gone deeper in some of the markets, like in Germany, like in Ireland, France, the US, with our core offerings, but we still keep people, engaged by bringing out interesting and unique expressions of Teeling whiskies and Irish whiskey. So we feel there's still a lot of work to do. We're still, I wouldn't say with the start, but we're somewhere early on in the journey, and plenty of opportunities out there, hopefully for us and for other new entrants in Irish whiskey.
Yeah. In the industry, like 5 years is a lifetime, but in whiskey, 5 years is
nothing. There's nothing. But are you happy with where you are? Is it in line with the expectations you had, Jack?
I have a problem, and I'm never happy with where we are.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing too.
Looking for more, and this year obviously is if we take out this year, I think we're getting there in 2019. I think some of the hard decisions in terms of changing distributors in the US and different things like that has hopefully bearing fruit. It just takes time. And this year we're going to have to take a step backwards like everyone else before we start moving ahead. But I've been, pleasantly surprised with the resilience of a lot of our markets over, the very challenging times that we've had. So I still feel, work to do, but we're going in the right direction. Yeah.
And Kevin says you've done so much in 5 years. It really does seem that you've been around a lot longer than 5 years in terms of what you've done. What would you do differently, Alex, Jack, both of you actually? What would you do looking in hindsight? Or are you happy you made the mistakes that you did or the choices that you did?
Yeah, I think you do have to kind of make them. You have to, in order to do something different that people haven't done before, you're going to make some mistakes, right? And I think that we have learned from some mistakes. I don't think that we made a lot of mistakes, in fairness to us, right? But I think that some of the things that we've done, we'd say, "Ooh, maybe I wouldn't do it that way again." But I also don't think that we would have learned what we've learned and be where we're at without having some of those missteps, I guess would be a better way of putting it, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Jack?
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't think we've made a huge number of mistakes. There definitely is some I think people-wise is always a difficult one. Sometimes you make decisions, and then it's you're a smaller company, so it's hard to unwind the decision. Sometimes, so I've made some bad judgment calls, along the way. I put my hand in the air, but I think we learned a lot from our previous involvement. So a lot of mistakes have been made there that probably we had internalized and we didn't make. But look, there's so many, and as you say, when you're creating something, you have to break some eggs to get there. As long as they're not terminal or fatal, you'll keep going.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you learn from your mistakes, I should probably be the most knowledgeable person around, but it doesn't work that way. But I'm going to ask, because I've kept you, I know, more than an hour, and I could keep you easily for another hour. Very quickly, how is that relationship with Bacardi working in the US, and what difference has it made?
Yeah, so that was, a very hard decision for us to make. Was it the right decision? Was it the best decision? Look, time will tell. What it has given us is access to a very strong family-owned partner that really see the opportunity in Irish whiskey and want to grasp it with ourselves. So they believe in us. So because they believe in us, they leave us alone. But just let us get on with it. And the thing is, a big market like the US, it takes a while to change your distributors and build up a bit of momentum. So we had to go way backwards before we get going again. So we're only getting going really last year, and this year has thrown a big spanner in the works in the US. But we're working our way through it, and we work with them in global travel retail, which obviously is off a cliff. So it's not a year to really reflect. We'll give them another year or two and we'll figure out has it worked out. But it was a decision we made because we felt the US was such an important market for us. We didn't want to sit back in 5 years' time and say, well, God, we knew it wasn't really going the way we wanted, but why didn't we do something about it? So we tried to make a strategic call, and we'll see how it goes.
And future markets, where do you see those evolving? I know we talked about India and Asia. Are they the big ones?
Africa and Asia, I think, are very interesting. Africa is there's an opportunity there. How you grasp it, I'm not 100% sure. But there is, you're seeing the figures for Nigeria and Kenya and Ethiopia. They go up and down, but there's something going on. I think Asia, definitely, I just think it requires a longer term approach. I think the latent interest in premium and imported premium products are interesting, and maybe the way we have to tackle somewhere like China is to focus more on the higher end items rather than the entry level items, and you get there a little bit like I suppose cognac and some of the
cognac
other
would have done that.
So look, there is plenty, and Russia, as you correctly say, it's happening now.
Absolutely,
Their economy is fluctuates so much with oil and everything else that goes on. So that will be a bit of a up, but the trend definitely is up, which is great. So for me, there's loads of opportunities. There is loads of opportunities, and some are bigger than others. And what you want to do is seed in the smaller places so that you'll take advantage as they evolve and they grow as well.
Okay, I'm just going to wrap up with.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, go for Alex.
I was just going to say, I think with both of those questions, it's about the partnership that you have locally, right? So in the US, what is your partner doing for you? How are they representing you? What are you doing for them? And also in all of those markets where you're trying to expand, right? Finding the right partner, finding somebody who understands what you are capable of and what you're trying to do with the Teeling brand, right? And can represent you correctly in that marketplace. That's the difficult thing with whiskey, is that it's not just the Teeling guy in Mumbai or Mombasa doing whatever, right? It's trying to find that person locally who's going to get it and knows how to take advantage of the market.
Yeah. I'm going to, because we've gone over the hour, I know, and I'm apologize, but I honestly could go on. I just want to wrap up. Alex, maybe I'll take this question first. What do you most proud of, and what are you looking forward to most going forward?
If I look back at the 5 years, right, what I'm probably most proud of is how we've taken Irish whiskey across both the categories of blend and single grain, and single pot still, and single malt, right? And we've expanded those definitions, right?
Yep.
With the single grain, we've got our own single grain, which is used in California red wine cask and going in a different direction than grain ore, right? With the single pot still, we've got a single pot still that's very different from the existing single pot stills that are out there. And even with single malt, right, we've got a single malt that is not the same as what other people are producing. There's a distinct, noticeable, very strong difference of Teeling whiskey and all of those different categories of Irish whiskey. And I think to be able to do that over the spectrum has been great, right? That's what I'm proud of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everybody's thrilled with the variety and the innovation that you push the boundaries on, Alex. And what I actually like is you're the kind of person that if you ping an email to, I'll get an answer to, and it might be, I won't talk to you now, but later. But even you do take on board what you hear as well. I think even.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not a one-man show, right? I'm not doing this in a bubble, and I'm not some sort of omnipotent being that like knows exactly what the right thing. Like it's a give and take with Jack and Stephen and myself. Give and take with different people that are out there in the whiskey community. And if somebody doesn't like it, the Brabazon, I think, is a great example of that. The first Brabazon, I thought that I knew what we needed to do. And then I went and got some people's thoughts on it, and people didn't understand it. And you realize, oh no, we've got to completely redo this. But you have the opportunity. We have the stock. We have the space as far as the sales demands to be able to create new products, right, and to be able to go out to partners and present new and unusual and unique whiskeys in ways that Irish whiskey hasn't done in the past. And that's been great.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. I really appreciate your time this evening, and meet you soon. I hope in better times.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Jack, I'm going to ask you the same question. Just a quick note there. Shamini is saying she's hoping she'll be able to meet you next time she's over. She's busting to leave Norway and come to Dublin.
Well, I prefer to leave Dublin and go to Norway.
Oh, God.
So look, I'm very proud of everything that we've achieved as a group, and really, as you said, establishing Teeling Whiskey as winning the awards, seeing it internationally recognized, and actually doing something that's good for the category. That's what I take away from it. Like, bringing distilling back to Dublin now that there's another 3 distilleries. It's exactly what we wanted to do. Hopefully, reality is the sale of Cooley, the start of Teeling Whiskey Company. That for me has been the turning point within the category, and I think that's where it all has come from. Because I think people realized there was an opportunity there, and that there was room for people if they do something themselves. So hopefully, I don't want to sound too much, but hopefully we paved the way. People say, well, okay, if they can make it work, well then there's room for us as well. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to fulfill a need and a role in the category, and we'll hopefully continue to do so.
Yeah. Well, I know you won't rest on your laurels, and you've certainly built a fantastic brand with a credible brand, because it's easy enough to, well, it's not easy to build a brand, but you can build a brand with no substance as well. And I think you've put a lot of efforts, and I'm particularly grateful, and I think the whole Dublin side of the community are grateful for the contribution you've made, particularly in Newmarket Square as well, but to the wider sector. I think they're often overlooked, and they're really important. And what you did for the frontline supporters, and what you do for the charities, and what you do for the sector are really valuable. So thank you very much. We're big fans of what you do, and hope to speak soon and meet in person soon. And thanks for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you very much for all your support over the years, and I know you have one of the best collections of Teeling whiskey, so thank you. And anyone who's managed to stay on for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to divide this into 3 or something for others. Look, guys, take care. Sláinte. Best of luck with everything, and speak to you soon. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks. Wow. Sorry for keeping you late, guys. We could have gone for another bit longer. There's so much happening. There's so much happened in 5 years that it wouldn't do them justice to knock it off short. I'm just going to leave you with a thought, just to look after yourself. I know it's going to be a difficult time going over the next few weeks, 6 weeks, but I saw this up in Belfast actually over the last week. I was up there, and I thought I'd share this with you, just to look after one another. And there is hope, and there's plenty of optimism on the other side. And we'll speak to you next week. The show goes on, and thanks very much for joining. Good night.